It goes without saying, doesn't it, that food is good for us. Food is love. Food is life. Food is medicine. We trust that the food we're eating is not hurting us. But there is something we must know.
There have been many instances in the past of chemicals and even practices such as cigarette smoking that were deemed to be completely harmless and amazingly beneficial in terms of eradicating pests, such as DDT and chlordane as pesticides. These were deemed so benign that they were claimed to be good for us. You know, there was the slogan back in the 50s, DDT is good for me. And that you could literally virtually drink it and pour it on your cornflakes in the morning was the impression you were given. But we, of course, in retrospect, we now know that that was not a good idea.
Pesticides weren't always thought to be harmful. To the contrary. In 1947, Time magazine carried an advertisement claiming DDT was good for people, homes, and farms. It took 20 years before scientists realized how dangerous it was.
It begins with the war-born development of DDT. This diabolical weapon of modern science saved millions of humans, but killed billions of insects. Man, with this newly discovered force, has at long last gained the upper hand in our age-old struggle. Just like these mosquito larvae, it came from laboratories where top scientists from famous universities and from industrial and government organizations collaborated to develop something new and different. They succeeded.
Now, to these people, apparently the balance of nature was something that was repealed as soon as man came on the scene. Well, you might just as well assume that you could repeal the law of gravity. The balance of nature is built of a series of interrelationships between living things and between living things and their environment. You can't just step in with some brute force and change one thing without changing a good many others. Now, this doesn't mean, of course, that we must never interfere, that we must not attempt to tilt that balance of nature in our favor. But unless we do bring these chemicals under better control, we are certainly headed for disaster.
Rachel Carson, author of the landmark book Silent Spring, started a revolution. During the 1950s, when crop dusting planes and insect sprays blanketed plants with DDT, Carson warned of the dangers of chemical pesticides. She warned of science's power to alter nature and called for government action to protect its citizens. Because of her courage, the disaster did not come to pass, and with Carson's words and spirit, the modern environmental movement was born.
What's happened since the Second World War has been the adoption of very much a chemical-based agricultural system. The very same companies that were producing chemical warfare substances during the war, after the war was over, they turned their attention to using the same types of chemistry to produce substances to kill the pests in an agricultural context. And that has gradually, that just became the dominant way in which farmers began to produce their foods, which of course means that the population began to be exposed to chemicals which they were never exposed to before because they never existed. 80% of GMO crops that are cultivated globally, and especially in the United States now, have basically been engineered to tolerate application of a herbicide. In the vast majority of cases, glyphosate-based herbicides such as Roundup. Virtually all of the GMO crops cultivated at present are associated with one or other pesticide, and as a result, we are ingesting higher quantities of these pesticides in the diet, which as a cocktail, I believe, has converted our food supply into a slow poison.
Health statistics show that parallel to the increase of glyphosate use, there is an increase of infertility, thyroid disorders, liver and kidney and other diseases. Officially, the U.S. government does not acknowledge any possible connection. The glyphosate test samples provide another surprise.
I guess it starts from the desire of the corporations that make these products to make a profit. And yes, we do have a regulatory system, but that regulatory system is very inadequate in terms of exploring all the risks that could possibly arise from these substances. So that isn't happening. There's a very strong lobby in the case of the chemical industry, which, by the way, is the same industry that is now producing genetically modified seeds. These are chemical companies. And they are putting these products out there in a real hurry. They're not properly tested, and the signs that they could be dangerous are just being ignored or dismissed.
I've done some work in my own laboratory that has confirmed that what we call an ultra-low dose of Roundup, glyphosate-based herbicide, administered to rats in their drinking water at a dose that is thousands of times below what the regulator says is completely safe, still causes an increased incidence of liver and kidney damage in these animals over a long-term basis, over a 2-year basis of consumption. What I feel that we need to do is to conduct similar investigations that build on this kind of observation. We can present it to the authorities and make them sit up and take note.
Outside Europe, 90% of all genetically modified crops are resistant and dependent on glyphosate. For GMO corporations like Monsanto, Syngenta, Bayer, and others, this is also about the defense of their worldwide billion-dollar GMO business, which without glyphosate products would collapse. Meanwhile, Monsanto has commissioned a scientific company who, it is said, could prove that the critical review by the cancer experts of the WHO is nothing but junk science.
Quite often there is this revolving door between the GMO industry and the regulatory bodies. The governments and the corporations are not informing citizens. In fact, they are often part of the process of obscuring the truth, part of the cover-up, if you like. So it's really up to citizens at this point to inform themselves. This is a case of the fox guarding the hen house. People can encourage each other to seek out healthier food for themselves. I do recommend that people eat organic if they can. GMOs, there is an attempt to exclude GMOs from organic foods. I can't say that it's completely fail-safe. However, organic food is at least less likely to contain GMOs and pesticides than non-organic food. And obviously get to know your producers as well. Make friends with your local farmers. Try to eat local food that you know has been produced in a good way. And it's great to join a group that is, people need to get engaged in their own food supply. And that will be different according to who you are. You know, you could be a housewife, you can be a farmer with livestock, but please look at what is going into the bellies of the people and the animals that you care about.
Say yes to healthful food grown in a sustainable, non-toxic, non-harmful way. Help spread the word. Stand up and stand out, because the way we're headed is not sustainable. Be a Rachel Carson of today. She was right then, and we're right now. We just need to be heard.